Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpwood Queen, and I'm reporting live from the Robert R. Muntz Library at the University of Texas in Tyler, Texas. And I'm in this wonderful little testing room. It's not soundproof. I can hear the kids working next door because we've got all these glass compartments where everybody's working on their group projects and everything. But I am very excited because tonight we're with Dianne C. Braley, who she has her book right behind her, The Silence in the Sound. And look at that big award she's got going there. And just so the audience knows that'll be watching this when I post this on YouTube, Diane's book is a bonus book of the year, and it will be up for the bonus book of the year award. So all the authors that I pick, I have categories. I have book of the month, I have international book of the month, and I have bonus book of the month. There's not any books that are better than anybody else's. It's just I divided them into categories so I can have more winners. And I'm all about helping authors and getting their books out there in a world that tends to regionalize books, tends to, a lot of people will be really famous down in Beaufort or out in Bellingham, but nobody in the Midwest or the South knows about them. So that's my job of getting the word out there. So before we talk to Dianne, I'm just going to quickly tell you about two books that came in this week, because when authors join my book club and they send me their books, they're up again up against hundreds and hundreds of authors, and I can't pick them all. So I thought, how can I help them? They're sending me the books, so I'm going to show them. Each week I'm showing, and I got two books this week. We got Aaron Lidikin's book, The Lost Daughters of Ukraine, Torn Apart by War, Will They Be Reunited? This is a hot button topic right now. I actually requested this book, and it's set in the summer of 1941. You guys, this could be a possible international book club selection. And then now you want to talk about a great cover. Look at this. It's Kill Show. It's a true crime novel. It's written by Daniel Swerin Becker, and it's a true crime novel. So it's got a very haunting cover and everything, and so this will keep me awake at night. So I'm going to get to these books this weekend. But I think last year I got seven books, so I'm putting them up on this channel so that they'll forever be on YouTube. So at least, and then all the books that I don't pick this year, I'm donating to the University of Texas Library so that they can be shared with all the students and faculty and staff. So you guys are in a very well received library. The parking lot is packed at night here. This is where they don't go to the Union anymore. They come here. So now tonight we're with Dianne. And the last time I was with Dianne, we were at Girlfriend Weekend, which was in Amelia Island, Florida. Had a wonderful time. Jeffrey was there. He's going to be our co-host next year, J.LawrenceMatthews, and he comes from Naples, Florida. We have Suzanne Kamada here tonight, and we have, let's see, who else just piped in? We have Suzanne. Who else joined us? Oh, Emily Conroy's here tonight. She's from up in Portland. And let's see. I think that's it now, but we may have more jump in later. But Dianne, to begin with, we've got your book behind you. It's got a beautiful cover, and it's a little haunting. So explain for the person that hasn't read your book now. Most of our book clubs should have read the book because it's up for we're going to start voting in October for books of the year through December 1st. So explain to our listening audience that's coming in from all over the world. Suzanne Kamada's here. Suzanne's here from Japan. I got to get her in. And so explain to everybody this story and the backstory about how this became a book. I know everybody's going to really want to know.
Well, thanks
You
for
can begin.
having me. Thank you. And
You're welcome.
yeah, so how it became a book. It feels like I mean, you tell the same story over and over again, but it just feels like it's such a long journey that sometimes I feel like it's even exhausts me to tell it. But I had the honor of, I'm a nurse, and I was the private nurse for Pulitzer Prize winning author William Styron. He's arguably best known for Sophie's Choice, that I think a lot of people are familiar with, especially like in
Oh, yeah.
certain age groups. Um, but I always wanted to be a writer. That was my dream as a kid. I wrote poetry, and but I grew up blue collar, and a very pretty uh, poor lower income home. I also grew up in alcoholism, and that's just, I don't wear that like a badge of honor. I just say that because it's very pertinent to the book. And where I grew up in Revere, Massachusetts, being a writer was just something like that's just unheard of. That's kind of a hobby. There's not many artists and writers coming out of Revere, Massachusetts. There's a few. I think there's two, but
That's good.
so following my mother's footsteps, she was a nurse, and it's amazing, admirable profession, and it was very good to me, and it led me to Martha's Vineyard, a place that I had only visited. The fancy people go there, and I happened to go there with a friend in my 20s, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I said, I'm going to live here one day. This is it for me. And I kind of grew up in a lot of dysfunction. I became a nurse. I took off to the fancy place and the beautiful place, and I stumbled into caring for this, genius melancholy author, and being in that home where the children are artists and dancers, and you're just around Frank McCourt and Kurt Vonnegut and all these creators, Carly Simon, Mia Farrow, and it really just awakened something inside me. Like, it was just such a whole different life. And I was the help. I'm a nurse, but that was the help. But it wasn't just that. It was him. He was a man of few words, and when he did speak, it was very profound. And he was not just my patient. He became my friend and my motivator, because I saw that he wrote about the darkness in the world, and with the darkness within himself. He wrote a book about depression. He struggled greatly with depression, and he wrote Darkness Visible. That when that came out, it started out as, I believe, a Vanity Fair article, and then he turned it into a small book. And he arguably was like the most depressed man in the world, a famous depressed person in the world at that time. So he really brought awareness to it. And so it really inspired me that someone could write about their own darkness and like channel their darkness into something. It kind of inspired me to like it takes power over it. So, I grew up in alcoholism. On my beautiful island, I ran away from all that, but I actually ran right towards it because I fell in love with someone unbeknownst to me, but all of the signs were there that he was an addict too, and I was involved in a spiraling toxic love affair. And in Mr. Styron's book, in reading his books in front of him, which was a wild experience, his books kind of helped me. As Sophie's Choice helped me kind of make a choice of my own. And I'm not comparing my choice to Sophie's, but it was inspiring. So my book is based on these events. It is fiction. I like to spice up some characters here and there, but it is based on those events. And it took me many, many years to write it because there was obviously a lot of pain involved. Mr. Styron passed away, and in my father, and you'll well, I'm not going to give you all the secrets, but there was a lot of, if you haven't read it, but there was a lot of pain, and it took me a very long time to write it, and I was very scared, but I was inspired to do so from my patient and my friend.
Well, that authors always internalize this and think they're the only one, but I cannot tell you how many times in my almost 24 years of interviewing authors, they go, I came from a dysfunctional family where alcoholism, and I think, Maybe that's a prerequisite of becoming many of the authors. But I think what it is I think writing becomes an outlet that is safe. It's kind of like for me, the only thing I'm addicted to is coffee. And so, coffee is one of those things. I don't know if you can OD on coffee. I probably may have, I don't know. But it seems like a relatively safe addiction at this time. But I do think that writing is what keeps a lot of people away from finding other vices. And I've heard this over and over, and I'm sure there's been all kinds of studies. And so writing must mean a great deal to you in telling your story. And you have done it in such a way that somebody's going to read this and they're going to go make that connection. It only takes one person, and then they tell 10 more, and they tell 10 more. So, it's everybody read this book. You need to know the story. And I really didn't even get the full connection till I was at Girlfriend Weekend and what you gave for the silent auction. I was like, wait, what is this? And tell everybody what you put in our author silent auction. I asked the authors to donate a personal item that ties into their story. And look what you gave. I mean, that was amazing. I don't know who won it. Jeffrey, did you win it?
Yeah.
He did?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, did you win it? Okay, tell everybody what you won.
It is an autographed book by William Styron. I mean, it's great.
How exciting is that? I
Yeah.
mean, I don't, he's gone. So that's got to have, it would have personally great value to me, but it's probably worth quite a bit of money too, because, unfortunately in the arts, when somebody dies, their value really goes up on their paintings and their books and their, everything. So their signed guitars, whatever. But it was a very generous thing to give. And I just think that is the coolest thing ever. And which reminds me, when we do meet back in person again, I have your crown. Did I tell you that? The crown that you had. No, I have Jeffrey's crown. He left it for a weekend. And I thought, he left his crown. I'll just bring it back next time when he comes. And so only
I'll be there.
Zoom. I may have to wear it for you, but anyway, I do have your crown. So one time I had a girl leave a hot pink wig, and then the next time she came back 2 or 3 years later, and I go, here's your wig. She goes, oh my God. I left it on the table. And I said, well, it's here. But we have, that's quite a story. Now, how many years did you work for Mr. Styron, Dianne?
I worked for him, I think it was, I lived in their guest house in Connecticut too. It was 3 or 4 years, the end of his life.
Yeah. Wow.
But I was with him 7 days a week. 7 days a week. It was a lot. And go ahead.
Did you start writing when you were with him? Did he know you were working on it?
No, I wasn't. I didn't even think of writing that till after he passed away. I was writing some other things, and I was just kind of fooling around, and he caught me and said, what are you doing? And I said, writing. And I was kind of horrified. I'm like, oh, I'm writing.
Yeah.
And he said, it's actually in the book. I used this. He said, what are you writing about? And I said, a horse. It's a story about a horse farm in Virginia. And he said, well, do you know about horses? And I said, no. And he said, do you know about Virginia? And I said, no. And he said, well, why are you writing about these things? Write about what you know, as they say.
And were you actually writing about a horse farm in Virginia, or were you just making that up to pretend?
No, I was. I had about 75 pages.
Did you not want to write about what you really were going to write about? Was it hard to?
I didn't plan on writing about this story till I kind of wanted to write a little bit, but it wouldn't have been this, because he hadn't have passed away yet, and some couple things hadn't have happened. But I definitely did want to write about what I knew. But then I thought, I think we all think what we know is first of all, what I know is something I don't want to be the, I don't really want to relive addiction in my childhood and all of these things. And it's interesting because even when I was writing this, that was never the premise. I never planned on writing so much about my father and my relationship and his addiction. I ended up just, I was supposed to touch on it. And then I just could really, really tap into those feelings of, I can go right back to being a little girl and being a teenager and our relationship. And we had a real special relationship, a torturous one, but also an amazing one. And I ended up just writing and writing and writing. And so the book became something I never intended. And actually when it was finished, it was actually, I still never realized what it was. I really thought it was kind of like a tragic love story and this and that. And then I had like two beta readers say to me, wow, this book really is about the devastating effects of addiction. And I said, oh my God, it totally is. and
Isn't
then
that funny?
Well, then I'm the spokesperson, which I'm honored. All I do is speak to about addictions. I was just in Recovery Today magazine. Like I'm writing all about growing up in addiction and all these platforms and speaking, which I'm very good at because I know about it. But I never intended for this. I never expected for this to be happening.
It's wild. It's interesting how things are put in your path to bring other things, all these connections, I mean,
Yeah.
how many people in the world end up being nursed to somebody like William Styron? That's a story in itself right there.
Yeah, and that was kind of what the story more or less was going to be a lot of. And it's kind of, again, it kind of turned into something a bit different. And I remember at the time, my mother said to me, this is a really unique experience. And, I was about 27, 28, and I was just living my own life. And I remember going, yeah, whatever, and I have the Secret Service. I'm like dealing with the Secret Service and Bill Clinton's coming in and I'm doing all these wild things. I'm in airplanes and going to his appointments in New York and I'm doing all this stuff and I'm really not thinking anything of it. It's just very interesting.
That's just part of being young,
It's being young. Yes. Yeah.
When you have these things happen when you're younger, you don't realize the precedents that they set for the rest of your life. They really do.
Absolutely.
So it's a great story, and I'm dying to hear about your next book. And it's finished. You've got your next book done?
It's been finished, and I don't know that I want to use my current publisher, so I'm kind of shopping it around, just agents and other publishers to see if anyone bites and what I want to do. I'm not quite sure, but I want it to be a summer release, so I'm not sure but it's being shopped around right now.
Well, good. And you have an agent?
I don't. I just have a publisher, but I'm querying agents right now. So I have I have a handful of full requests out, and so let's fingers crossed. Let's see. But I don't even know if that's the way I want to go. Like it's just whatever happens is going to happen. So I'm just wherever it's. I think a book always has to find its home. Whether you self-publish, a publisher, and it seems to find its home, and I just need it to find its home.
When I first started doing the book club, everybody was published by a major publishing house, pretty much. Now, very few of most of my keynotes that are coming are, published by a major, but they're a rare, it's just not like it used to be. Everything has changed in publishing. And
there's also the publishers aren't marketing. We're all doing our own marketing and tons of it, and even the top 5 they're hardly doing any marketing. So a lot of people are like, well, why should I give all my royalties up for when I'm doing so much of the work? So it's
it's true, but they're so short-staffed. Everybody's freelance nowadays, and so it's the whole world is changing. In fact, in such leaps and bounds, I predict in next 5 years, we won't even recognize this planet. But I do know that people always want to read a great story. And, I remember when the craze came out about ebooks, and everybody said, oh, the printed books are going to be gone. We're going to save all the trees. Well, that lasted, the flavor of the week. People read books. I mean, they're on
Yeah.
Audible and they're on ebooks, but I sell, more of people want my book and they want it autographed. So I don't know what they're going to do with these AI books that have no author. They're going to have a robot sign it. I don't get it. But I think the human mind is capable of presenting nothing that a computer can do. So everybody just don't panic, hang tight and get me your manuscript. I'm reading for next year. I understand that you haven't sold it yet, but the minute you do, we could pop it in the queue. I really want to help authors as much as I can, and especially ones that I've already picked, because I really firmly believe in investing in an author and their journey. Because I have seen Jamie Ford go from his very first unknown author book to, I mean, my God, he's doing a writing workshop in France that Jeffrey's going to. I'm so jealous. I can't stand it. So aren't you going to be in a castle or something, Jeffrey?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what tough
Well,
life, man.
that's a funny story. So, and I don't want to take the focus away from Dianne, but Jamie put a thing on Facebook saying, I'm going to do this writer's workshop for a week in France. And the only entry thing they asked for was the first page of whatever you're working on. And I kind of thought, oh, okay, well, I'll send the first page of the book I'm working on. And I was kind of impressed that it wasn't tell us about what you do. Tell us about everything you've done. It was just, what's the work? And they said, we'll get back to you very quickly and you'll hear from us. And I heard the next day, they said, yeah, you can do that. You're accepted. And then I started.
That's impressive. That's impressive because.
But Kathy, honestly, I started having buyer's remorse because I was thinking, wait a minute, that was too easy. Is this just, people paying a lot of money to be in a castle in France to, pal around with Jamie Ford? Like,
no.
Is this really serious? So Jamie, a couple of weeks, so I was really like torn, and I kept telling Nancy, I don't know if I should do this. And Nancy said, are you crazy?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So 2 weeks later, he puts out another thing on Facebook, Castle in France, blah, blah, blah. And I wrote, I'm looking forward to seeing you there. He messaged me directly and said, hey, tell me a little bit about, what you're expecting and that kind of thing. And I wrote this back to him saying, I'm really anxious because I'm worried that it was too easy. And is this really going to be about writing, or is it just more about wine tasting and all this stuff? And he said, oh, no, this is real serious work. And so it was very comforting. And he also changed his Facebook messages to make sure people understood this wasn't just about palling around in a castle in France. So I'm really excited about it. And he's such a nice guy. And I met him. It was his Zoom that he did with you, Kathy.
Yeah. Well, Jamie's a good guy. I just heard from him twice this week. I feel like I'm blessed, but you're going to have the time of your life. And anytime you go to a writer's workshop, you're going to learn something.
Yeah.
And I've never been to one where I didn't take away something very important.
Yeah.
And I encourage everybody who's wanting to write a book or wants to get better to keep going, continue your writing journey and go. But yeah, you're one of the fortunate ones. But Jamie Ford is at that place where they don't just pick anybody. Okay. They're not just going to pick anybody. So I'm very excited for you. And I'm very excited for Dianne that she's got a new book coming out. And I'm going to put out, good karma that it's going to be picked up and we can get it read and see about making a Pulpwood Queen Book Club selection, because this list that we've got coming up in 2024 is one of the strongest lists I've ever had. But it's because I've got a lot of big authors that are supporting me. And that helps me support the unknown ones, because it's all about looking behind you and helping the next person up the rung of the ladder. Now, Dianne, what has your experience been as a writer and getting your first book published? Because people always think, oh, I'm going to write a book. Well, don't talk to me until you get it written.
Yeah.
But, you know, it takes years, most people years to write a book. What was your, you know, how fast did that go for you?
Oh gosh, I even had my sister remind me. She said, "You were taking notes for this book. Like I was taking notes for like 5 years." And
Yeah.
then because I just wasn't ready to pull the plug, I think. And then I I'm a very disciplined person. When I pull the plug, I'm gonna go for it. And then I picked a date and I did. And then I wrote every day, like 2 hours a day for 2 years. And then I finished it. And then but then you think, I'm a self-trained writer. I didn't I'm in I kind of finished. I'm in college now. I'm going back for creative writing, but so
Yay.
yeah, if when I have time I have to go back. I've taken a little break, but it's just a goal that I have, and I just so you write it, and then there's all these things you don't know. So my first draft was 130,000 words. So you don't realize, oh, so then I'm like, for a first time author, debut author, women's fiction, like you're supposed to be in this many words and things like that. So you don't really know. And then, learning to write dialogue. And I always struggle with tense issues a little bit. Like, so I really had to like, learn, I'm much better now, but it was just so I had, and then money, I got an editor. You get an editor and she was awful. You get, so I lost, you lose money and you just learn and learn and learn. And I just found some great beta readers, and I then finally got a really great editor. And I queried, it's kind of a book it doesn't, at the time, the high concept books, and they still are very popular. So I kept hearing like, it's really like not high concept enough. And we really like it, but we're not sure if we can sell it, and blah, 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 all of that stuff. So I was just so defeated. But then, finally a publisher loved it, and the acquisitions editor just so got it. So I just said, well, I think that's it. It's found its home. But I mean, querying a book and trying to get an agent, it can kill you. I mean, if you don't have thick skin, it is brutal. I mean, it is just, and then the time frame. I mean, it's publishing industry is the slowest industry on the planet. I mean, it is ridiculous. So,
Yeah,
it's
I
very
know.
frustrating.
I
Did you
finished
did
my
you
first book. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just curious, when you were querying, had you learned from your friend by then what the book really was about, and you were pitching it that way, or had you not really figured out what it was by that point?
I think my first query, if I recall, it kind of wasn't grabbing it. And then I kept going back. I'd use a beta reader, and then I'd have another, and then I had a critique partner, and I was like, look, come on. And then I would kept revising it until I really got a consensus, and I got 3 beta readers and that said, really were firm on what it was. But I also, as I was querying, and right when I finished the book, I knew something clicked in me. I said, the book's written in an alternating timeline. It initially wasn't. It was linear. And I knew right when I finished it, this would be better in an alternating timeline. I don't know why you always realize these things when they're complete. Like what? So
Yeah.
I was just hoping someone would pick it up, or an editor would, do the work for me or something, because I didn't want to do it. And then I after just, it wasn't working, and I said, I have to do this. So I took another 6 months, and I ripped it apart, and day and night made it the alternating timeline that it is. And then I said, that's it. It's how it's supposed to be. And then it seemed everything started going a bit smoother after that. So it was a process, man. It was tough, and it's no joke. I mean, people just don't write. Very rarely, I think people write books and get picked up right away. And I know it happens, but people who are successful, I think, in this industry, they work their butt off. I mean, they do.
My first book came about because a publisher called me and told me to write it. That's what happened to me. In a little hair salon bookstore, I get a call from a Southern publisher and saying, I want to know the story of what you're doing, because how in the world did you get Good Morning America and Oprah Winfrey and everybody to come to Texas and write this story? And so I go, I don't know. I just put it out there. So I started writing it, and I was assigned an editor and sent a contract. And then Cassandra King was in my shop. I picked her book, and I didn't know that she had married Pat Conroy. And I know Pat Conroy. I knew him. And she said, oh, I'm married to a New York Times bestselling author. And I said, oh, she goes, I just got married. It's my second marriage. And I go, oh, well, who'd you marry? And she goes, Pat Conroy. And I go, oh my God, when did Pat Conroy get? And well, anyway, his agent, I knew when she was with Bantam Doubleday Dell. So she said, she's my agent and Pat's agent, and you know her? Well, after I did her hair and before book club, she called her and she said, you know, Kathy Patrick at the time is writing a book and getting a contract for the story. And she calls me and says, don't sign the contract. Let's go to New York and shop it. And we did. And we went in a bidding war. And I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't even written anything. Nothing. So it does happen. But, you know, in a way, it's a blessing and a curse, because I finished the book in 2006. It did not get published till 2008.
Yeah.
It took, I turned it in June, you know, and it's weird. It was like a year and a half, and I was going, what am I going to do in the next? They said, start another one. I go, I don't even know what to write. I wrote about what happened, and then now I'm working on the sequel. The Pulpwood Queen Goes Back to School, which is really what I did. I have some story to tell. But the interesting fact of the matter is, I worked my ass off to write that book, because I was raising two small children, running a business full time, and I was in every activity in the town, you know, from theater to president of Rotary Club to, you know, it was insane. But I was young and had energy. Now I'm 67 and I'm taking my merry time. I'm not in any hurry. I'm helping authors. That's what I do. And I realize that's my true calling. And the next book is really just about helping authors know that keep learning, keep going, don't give up. You know, I've wanted to throw in the towel so many times, and kind of have, but somebody just said, nope, we're watching you. You got to be our example. So, you know, Dianne, your story is amazing, that you know, to work for somebody as, you know, well known as that and such admired, and then to take on that task, that had to have been a little bit intimidating. Was it?
Yeah, and I don't think, you know, I don't think I realized that till I was done, you know, because then you're like, oh wow, who do I think I am, you know, doing this. And then I'm still close with the family, so then I sent the first draft to his wife, and she was working on her memoir at the time. It actually just came out, and it's pretty interesting. But she she's all over the place, and it actually was pretty bad. The first draft was really bad. And her assistant, who I'm friendly with, read it, and we laugh about it now because she thinks my book's amazing, and she said the first draft was rough. I said, I know, I should have never said that, but I was
But that's
nervous.
okay. That's
I know.
okay. You got advice, and you've honed your craft, and you've done it. And I mean, to get published is just a Herculean feat today, because I don't even know how many they said books are coming out a day. It was one time it was like 300,000 or something. I
I
was
know.
going, what? I mean, come on, you guys. How many books can people read in a lifetime? I think 1 out of every 2 people now is writing a book or going to write a book. But the secret to writing a book is to write it, and then you talk about it. Because
Yep.
I did it backwards. I was talked into writing this book, and then I didn't know how to do that. but I learned. I went to every writing workshop I could go to for memoir, and I got great advice from Pat Conroy and Jeanette Walls and Jan Reed and all these great, Texas writers. So, and my authors, they helped me. But the point of the matter is, writing is like, you can't help it. You do it whether you get paid or not. And most people, they say the average person makes $3,000 a year off of a book. I haven't made that this year. I'm going to tell you that, because even though it's the first book everybody's to read, they're not reading it. So, but I don't give up, because as long as they're reading yours, I'm happy. That's my goal in life, is to get everybody that's here's book in the hands of readers. And I know that, I've got a lot of support from my authors, and through the years, it's just been amazing. I've had, Emily, we've talked about this. I've had the support of the Conroy family, and that's why I've made the Pat Conroy Literary Center my charity of choice, because they're doing wonderful. They're sold out for the Low Country Book Festival. I think this is the first year I've ever heard that, and it's in October. They're sold out. I go, I'm ready for those days to come back with the Pulpwood Queens, that were sold out. But I'm so excited about what they're doing, because it's affecting people all over the country and even out. Pretty soon they'll go international too. So any advice ever felt like they had a burning need or desire to write a book? Can you think of one thing or anything in particular? Oh, I'm sorry. I said, what is the one bit of advice you would give to anybody that wanted to write a story or begin a book? What would be the first thing that you would tell them to prepare themselves for the process? Because it's a process.
Oh, gosh. I mean, the first thing you have to do, like you just said, you have to write it. So Rome wasn't built in a day. And I think people give up on things too quickly. Don't think about the end. Just write a little every day. Even, some days I just even flip sentences around. I just get rid of a character. It's every day be doing something in what the book, and you'll be shocked how all of a sudden it just comes together. So discipline is the absolute key to writing, and then also taking the small wins. So if someone says they like something you wrote one day, take it and run with it, because the next day you'll have 3 people telling you how horrible it is. So,
and it doesn't even mean that it's horrible. It just means they may have had a bad day, or maybe some author was.
And it's subjective. It's not everyone's gonna like. In this book now that I have out, and it doesn't even bother me that much if I get a rejection or anything, because I just feel like I've taken such a beating that it can just bounce off me now. I feel like once you get it out there and you're validated in some way and you finish something. I mean, I know for me, my biggest obstacle always is myself. So when I complete something and I did this and I got it published, and I had the gusto to enter awards, and I won awards, and I did this, and now that I did, I don't care. Don't care what everyone else says. You did this. Like, that's a huge. Most people say that so many people want to write a book, they never do. They never even come close. So if you can do this, you're pretty amazing.
That's why I won't. Yeah, I won't curious. Give a bad review. Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
Dianne, what's been the biggest what's been the biggest surprise you've had in terms of reaction to it? What surprised you the most?
I think well, it's funny. And I'm sure you've experienced this, Jeffrey and Kathy too. Like, sometimes I learn more about myself in my book sometimes by the readers. Like I'll get these little insights from people, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even think, like that. And it's really cool. But definitely addiction piece of it and growing up in addiction. And I didn't realize how many people, yeah, well, I guess, yes, I've realized how many people have loved someone with addiction and have grown up this way. But I was told so many times that I I was able to humanize the addicts in my story. And so many times we in movies and books and things we portray addicts as just they're just addicts. It's one dimensional. They're addicts. There's not this huge person behind it and all these people that love them. And I was told by so many people, and I've had so many people come up to me crying and things like that, just amazing experiences where they just said thank you so much for humanizing these people, because it also made them feel better, like about themselves, because sometimes there's a lot of shame with loving someone with this disease. And so I got so much of that, and it was just really beautiful, and I was blown away, just blown away.
Well, from my point of view, and I read it and I thought it was fabulous. And I thought that's exactly what you did. That I couldn't quite figure out how to say it myself, but I think that's exactly what you did. I didn't grow up with addiction, but to me, it was sort of shockingly insightful. It was, they weren't caricatures. And there was this relationship with the father that, how do you keep doing that? And that's the relationship. And it was really striking.
Thank you. Thank you. And I didn't intend, I mean, I just wrote from the heart and wrote from kind of my own experiences. And I never, that is how I feel. I never, I, like so many people, I loved my father. Did I love his disease? Absolutely not. Did I think he was easy to live with? No, it was horrible, but I still loved him so much. And we had our own special relationship on top of this horror. It's very hard, it's hard to articulate, but I think, people telling me I did, and that's, and making them feel better. So that was just amazing. And also, I don't know, speaking of, charity, I partnered with the Robert F. Kennedy Community Alliance here in Massachusetts, and they have a little small division called COASA. It's for children of alcoholics and substance abusers. And when I was growing up, there was one meeting my mom took us to for kids of alcoholics in Jamaica Plain when she was just desperate, and that's a very long drive for us. And it's no better today. There's all we do is kind of treat symptoms and all of healthcare and addiction too. And there's so many kids that are growing up like this, and they have so much more of a probability of becoming an addict themselves or someone of dysfunction. So part of the proceeds of my book goes to this division. And I also, just because of my love of the Martha's Vineyard, and a big newspaper article is coming out next week, that I partnered with the Martha's Vineyard Ocean Academy, and they're a camp, and they kind of have, it's not just a camp, they have a social workers, and it's a real growing experience. And they take kids out on the tall ships, the Black Dog tall ships, the Shenandoah, and they sail along the coast of New England, and they teach them how to sail and all this. And we sponsored one of the RFK kids through my book to go on this, have this experience. And she went, and I guess she was the most transformed of the season. And I was maybe cry my eyes out. To me, that's the absolute, I'm so proud of that more than any award. And it was great. And I hope to do it again next year. I really do.
That's great. Yeah. I encourage everybody to take on some kind of, good deed endeavor, literary or whatever, because it's not really, you think you're doing it for them, but it really helps yourself, your own persona and health and self-esteem. I mean, every time Jonathan Hote tells me we raise this for the Pat Conroy Center, I just go, man, I was a part of that. I kind of helped make that happen. And I'm just a small town Kansas girl. I mean, we didn't even have a bookstore in my hometown. And a writer, the only writer we knew about was Laura Ingalls Wilder, and she was famous. Nobody could ever become like her. And that's just not true anymore. Anybody can be a writer from anywhere in the world. We we're reading the books. So keep going, Dianne.
They'll have stories to tell.
Yeah, and we will hopefully be back in together for the 25th anniversary. But I had so many authors say, well, if you made it Zoom, I'd come. And I just confirmed today, Catherine Casey, who I don't know if you know her, but she's a Texas author from Houston, and she's always on 60 Minutes in 2020 because she is a true crime writer, and she's books in Venezuela called The Falls, and she looks like, your favorite grandma, and then she goes into the interviews these death row inmates. I'm telling you, she's been a great mentor to me, but she's going to be back. And then Stephanie Chance just sent me her pictures and everything. She'll be back, who does the books about taking Americans to Italy. So we've got a wide variety of books and stories to share. And somebody said, well, what book do you recommend? I go, if you just go to our website, you got a treasure trove. And if you don't see anything on that list, look at the year before. The year before, we go back now nearly 24 years. So I'm getting close to getting near the end of the 2024 list, but I've got a few spots left. So people, get me your books. And do we have a title for your new book? Yeah.
Well, you broke up for 1 second.
Shoot out there to people excited. I said, do we have a new book?
My next book? Oh, the title?
Yeah.
The title of my next book is The Summer Before. It's again, it's set on Martha's Vineyard and then Boston too. It has a lot of Boston. And I was writing a book with a kind of a similar story, and something happened a little bit on the outskirts of our life where a trial was involved and someone was convicted of a really heinous crime, and it made me flip this book on its head. And I'm writing it from the perspective of a secondary victim, not the primary victim. So, which I think is going to be really intriguing. And a couple of my beta readers said I'm on my way to be the dark Elin Hildebrand.
Oh my gosh, that's great! I can't wait to read that.
That's the biggest compliment you can give me.
That's great. So, well, I'm looking forward to it. And anybody out there that's with us tonight have any comments or questions for Dianne?
I have a question. Like how did you did you approach the Robert Kennedy Jr. Foundation yourself, or did they come to you, or how did that come about?
Nope. I was inspired by, there's a pretty well-known photographer on Martha's Vineyard, and I saw that his calendar was going to the substance abuse charity on the island. So I said, wow, wouldn't it be great for me to, partner my book, if I could find a charity that helped kids with addiction. And there's not many. Mm-hmm. So there's a national organization that I heard some kind of little bit of sketchy things about. And then there's this one, and it's local to me. So I really researched it, and I reached out to them, which I was told by my publisher and a lot of people is no small feat to partner with a charity. A lot of charities don't want to do that.
Right.
That's what I was told.
I haven't had that problem.
It sounds like a great PR. I mean, what you're doing is really wonderful and empowering for these kids and victims of addiction. But it's also a really great way to promote a book.
Yeah, well, it is. It is a good, because not only they promote me in their newsletter, but also that doesn't. But when you're going to sell the book, you can say, "Look, you're also helping a good cause." So yes,
absolutely.
It does increase sales. Let's be honest. Mm-hmm. But it's also, it makes people feel good, and it's a good thing. So.
Absolutely, yeah.
Dianne, what did you learn writing the first? What I find is working on the follow-up to the last book, I learned so much writing the last one that it gave me confidence when I hit certain things that I can get through this. What were the things you learned writing this first book that you've carried in that help you with the next one?
That I could write.
That's a big one.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it's
that's
just
a big one.
yeah. No, really, that really is it. But no, I did learn. Oh my God, I feel like I learned so much again with the dialogue. Biggest thing I think is if it doesn't need to be there, you can be writing it on a roll, and it's just so good, and it's witty, it's clever, it's emotional, whatever it is. But if the book can go on, and if that piece doesn't need to be there, dump it, like save it for something else. So the story has to really flow, and you can't go off in these channels. But I sometimes think as we're writing, you need to let yourself go off in these channels just to write and pull it off. I always rip it apart and like put it somewhere like in notes and so maybe I'll use it.
Right.
I
Stephen
think
King. Stephen King, and have you read Stephen King's book on writing?
I didn't read his book on writing. No, I've read him, but no.
I haven't read him, but I read his book on writing is called On Writing.
I heard it's great.
It's fabulous. And he writes about that. He says there's a lot of really good sound advice. There's nothing flighty and theoretical about it. It's real meat and potatoes and very encouraging. And he says that you write the first draft with the door closed, meaning you're writing it to yourself. You're telling the story, and you can go anywhere you want. But then you write the next draft with the door open, meaning you're writing it for other people. So it's got to flow. It's got to all make sense. And I find that image really helpful because when I know someone's going to be reading this draft, I start to cut stuff out and sort of get honest.
I like that. I mean, I think I do that, but now that you said it, I think I'll be more aware of it too. Because I think that's even taking writing. I'm supposed to go to a writer's retreat. I'm always a little nervous too. Not that I'm, a master writer, but I think I've honed. I can write in the first person fairly well, and I don't think that that's always easy. But I don't in other. I'm nervous to challenge myself in other ways because I've nailed this. So I'm on my third book right now, and I'm writing it in third person, and it's like, oh my God, I don't. It's hard for me, but sometimes
you can do it.
I can do it, but I'm nervous. Like when you take a lot, I think some people take so many writing workshops and classes, and they're all like, and I'm involved in all of these groups and Women's Fiction Writers Association. There's all kinds of videos and this, that. I think sometimes you can get so bombarded that you don't want to lose what's naturally coming out of you too, So I pick and choose really carefully what I'm gonna do, and only do so many because I think you can really just you don't want to lose your voice.
Yeah,
that's just my opinion.
That's great. That's great.
And don't you lose yours, Jeffrey, because I love your book and I've recommended it to so many people.
Wow. Thank you.
It's great. It's got such a unique voice. So anybody else want to come in or any more questions? This is your chance. We've got 3 minutes, everybody. So I think that's quite a story.
You said the title of your book. What is it again?
The Summer Before.
I think that's a great title.
Yeah, and it's a good play. It's a good play because the book is about. It's really not. It is a summer before, but the character. There's a character Summer, and it's about 2 best friends and this devastating thing that happens to them that rips them apart. So the story is really about the summer before and the summer before, meaning the girl. So it's. I hope I can use it because you never know what title you can use till it's down to the wire.
I know.
Is the character's name Summer? Is that it?
Yes, one of the girls.
That's perfect. That's great. I love that. That sounds like a winner. Okay, if there's any publishers out here hearing this, you need to check out Dianne C. Braley's new book. So she's got manuscripts ready. Yeah. And we will resume next Tuesday. We've got Trace Conger coming back with his book for the end of the month for September. And then, can you believe it? We'll be into the October books. I can't hardly, this year just flew by. And I'm very excited. If you haven't got your packages, people, get your packages, support these authors, come out, and you'll get to hear them all from the comfort of your own homes. I mean, that's pretty cool. Maybe up at the University of Texas, but I really like being here. So it's a wonderful college. So, in creative writing, or what are you working on? Dianne, did you get that? You must be pausing. Did you get, or have you gone back to college?
I did. I've about halfway through. I went for creative writing. So yeah, and I was taking a poetry workshop in college, and I ended up creating this. My professor said, "Geez, I love your work," and I ended up creating a little poetry chapbook that's again about the effects of growing up in addiction. And
well, good for you.
I'm done talking about that for now, but that's out. It's called Unheard Whispers, and it won a couple of local poetry awards. I have a little trophy, and
Aww, that's great. Well, she's blogging all this week on the Pulpwood Queen Presents. Be sure and go on, everybody. Make comments, ask your burning questions, and join us in this conversation, because it's just like anything. If you read a book, you have one impression. If you discuss it with your book club, you get a few more. But when you bring the author into the picture, it comes into full focus. So thank you, Dianne, for joining us. I look forward to seeing you in January. As everybody, I hope you're on board. It's all up on www.thepulpwoodqueens.com. If you have any questions for me, email me at thepulpwoodqueen@gmail.com, and it's all on the website too. So thank you. Have a wonderful night. Let's all fall back into reading and get writing too. So bye, everybody, from University of Texas and Tyler. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Love
Thanks,
to
everyone.
y'all.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.